Princess Celestria of the Varian Empire stood stiffly on the observation deck of the Celestial Dawn. Beyond the tall windows, distant stars glimmered like pale lanterns in the black sea of space. The human crew moved about her with polite deference, but it was Captain Marisol Vega who held Celestria's full attention. Marisol was tall and calm. Her dark hair fell in neat waves over her shoulders. She wore the standard Earth Federation uniform, crisp and white, with a small bronze pin that marked her rank. In her right hand, she carried a simple cup of steaming tea. Steam curled up from the cup in lazy spirals, and a soft scent of jasmine drifted through the air. "Princess Celestria," Marisol said in gentle tones, "I thought you might enjoy something warm." Celestria's violet eyes narrowed. No human had ever offered her a drink before. Diplomats from dozens of worlds had come and gone, each trying to impress or threaten her with grand gifts or veiled demands. Never had anyone simply stepped forward with a cup of tea. "Why are you being so kind?" the princess asked, her voice smooth like polished crystal. "You want something from me, human?" Marisol inclined her head with a small smile. "I want only to welcome you to this ship, princess. On Earth, we believe that first courtesy builds trust." Celestria pressed her lips together. Trust was a rare commodity in the galaxy. Empires traded treaties and weapons, but trust between alien races was almost unheard of. She shifted her weight, the ornate train of her ceremonial robe, whispering against the deck. "On my world," Celestria replied, "courtesy is a sign of power. A ruler who shows kindness is called weak." Marisol offered the cup forward, holding it with both hands. On Earth, kindness is strength. It comes from understanding another person's needs. The princess stared at the cup as if it were a strange artifact. Golden light from the starboard panels gleamed on the tea's surface. Celestria raised a slender silver eyebrow. She took the cup with delicate fingers, her glove faintly cold against the metal. She brought it to her lips and inhaled. The jasmine scent filled her senses, calm and reassuring. Small ripples formed on the tea's surface as she blew gently to cool it. Then she took a careful sip. Heat spread through her chest and throat, unfamiliar but not unpleasant. Marisol watched with soft patience. The other crew members pretended not to watch, but the quiet hum of the observation deck buzzed with curiosity. This moment was more than a polite gesture. It was a test of ancient prejudices. Celestria set the cup down on a small support table. "This tea, it is very different from our crystal fruit infusions," she said, choosing her words with care. "It is," Marisol agreed. "Our tea is simple, but it carries memories of home." "What memories?" Celestria asked, folding her hands before her. Marisol turned so that the stars framed her in the window's glow. "I grew up beside the Pacific Ocean. Every morning my grandmother would wake me with a cup of jasmine tea. She said that a calm mind and a warm heart could face any challenge." The princess studied Marisol's face. She saw sincerity there, an honest light that did not flicker or fade. On Varine, emotions were shown only in careful displays and official ceremonies. But Marisol's warmth felt real. "On Varine," Celestria said softly, "we pour crystal fruit infusions in grand halls with hundreds of guests. We stand on high balconies and speak in measured tones. We guard our feelings behind layers of ritual." Marisol nodded. "Ritual can be comforting, but sometimes a single act of friendship can mean more than 1,000 formal words." Celestria closed her eyes and took another sip of tea. She pictured the cold spires of her palace, the shimmer of crystal halls. She recalled her mother's voice, strict but fair, guiding her in court protocol. She felt a small tug of longing for simpler times, for the days before she had to think like a princess. When Celestria opened her eyes, her posture had relaxed just a fraction. "You speak as if kindness needs no reason," she said. Marisol smiled and gestured toward a curved bench by the window. Soft cushions lay against the bench, arranged in welcoming circles. "Please have a seat," she invited. For a moment, Celestria hesitated. In royal culture, a guest sat only when summoned by rank, but Marisol's tone held no command, only invitation. Carefully, Celestria took the seat, her gown spreading like liquid starlight over the cushions. From that vantage, the black velvet of space seemed even more vast and more inviting. Marisol sat beside her, holding her own cup of tea. No screens blinked. No guards hovered. It was just two beings, alone with the cosmos. I did not know a human could treat an alien princess so simply, Celestria said, watching the stars drift by. Humans are full of surprises, Marisol replied. Some of our greatest discoveries came when we forgot we were different. Celestria turned to her, curiosity lighting her violet eyes. What sort of discoveries? Marisol thought of Earth's explorers, scientists who crossed deserts, divers, who plunged into dark oceans, pilots who slipped beyond the atmosphere. All had one thing in common. They looked past fear and difference to find new wonders. Like the Voyager probes we sent beyond our solar system, Marisol said. They carry messages in case other life finds them. We wanted to share our story, our art, our music, our hope, if someone out there listened. Celestria's fingers drifted to the cup at her side. She traced a pattern on the ceramic, a simple ring of etched petals. Hope, she repeated. My people, we do not speak of hope. Marisol's gaze was gentle. Hope isn't weakness, princess. Hope is the courage to believe in a better tomorrow. The princess closed her eyes and let the words sink in. Around her, the crew whispered among themselves. This human was not like the rest. Marisol did not dangle gifts or issue threats. She offered trust, and so far it had gone unbetrayed. When Celestria opened her eyes again, her posture had shifted. The rigid, queenly front had softened into something almost human. She lifted the teacup and drank one final sip, holding the warmth in her hands. Marisol reached out and tucked a stray lock of hair behind Celestria's ear. The touch was polite, but intimate enough to startle the princess. Her eyes met Marisol's, and in that moment a spark of understanding passed between them, an unspoken promise that this cup of tea was only the beginning. Far beyond the observation deck, the celestial dawn's engines thrummed with steady power. Two worlds stood on the edge of a new chapter, linked by kindness instead of fear. In the quiet glow of distant stars, a human captain and an alien princess shared a simple cup of warmth, and the first, fragile bud of trust began to bloom. Princess Celestria stepped into the zero-G garden for the first time. The chamber's walls curved overhead like the inside of a great shell. Soft lights glowed behind faux leaves, making bright pools of gentle green and gold. Tiny jets of air held floating platforms aloft, each one cradling a single plant. Blossoms drifted lazily around the room as if in slow-motion ballet. Marisol Vega stood at the garden's entrance, smiling. She wore a simple smock over her uniform, pockets full of seed vials and water syringes. Welcome to our garden, she said. Here we grow plants from Earth, and some alien species too. Celestria's violet eyes widened. On Varine, gardens were formal rows of crystal-tended flora, each plant rooted in ground that glowed with bioluminescent soil. They did not float. They did not drift. Here, everything seemed alive in 3 dimensions. The princess lifted a gloved hand and let a pale blue blossom brush against her fingertips. It felt soft, like silk. Marisol guided her toward a platform holding a small sapling with silver leaves. This is the moon willow, she explained. It grows only where gravity is low. The leaves store starlight, so at night they glow faintly. She tapped the trunk and water droplets floated up in tiny beads, then splashed gently onto the leaves. Celestria bent forward, her breath catching. She had never seen leaves that held light. On Vahrine, glow trees shone in deep violet at dusk, but their light came from chemical gels, not from captured starlight. She traced a line along a leaf's edge. It warmed her finger, though she knew it was only reflected light. Marisol watched her with interest. Would you like to help me water one? She asked. She handed the princess a small syringe of nutrient solution. Celestria hesitated. On her world, royal hands never touched living roots. Servants and gardeners did that. But something in Marisol's steady gaze told her it was safe. She accepted the syringe and knelt, floating just inches above the floor. Outside the chamber's field, she would have fallen. Here she hovered. Carefully, she injected a tiny stream of solution into the sapling's translucent soil. The plant seemed to respond, its trunk quivering, then settling. Tiny silver buds unfurled into new leaves. A soft glow pulsed at their tips. Marisol nodded. Perfect. You have a gentle touch. The princess felt a small thrill, pride mixed with surprise. She drifted to another platform, where a cluster of ruby-red flowers floated like drifting lanterns. Their petals were thin as glass. She reached out, but Marisol raised a hand. Sometimes they are fragile, Marisol said. Let me show you. With a quick flourish, the captain activated a control panel. A faint current of air swirled around, the flowers causing them to rotate and reveal their undersides. Celestria watched in wonder as each petal caught the light in a different shade of red. It is like watching a sunset in slow motion, the princess murmured. A sudden jolt ran through the celestial dawn. Warning lights flashed orange along the corridor walls, and the gentle hum of the ship's gravity generators wavered. Princess Celestria, still floating in the zero-G Gardens foyer, felt the pull of weight shift beneath her boots. "Captain," came Lieutenant Kim's voice over the comm. "Gravity field in Sector 4 is collapsing. We're losing pressure." Marisol Vega's calm voice cut through the alarm. "Lieutenant, stabilize the field. I need a full status report in 30 seconds." She turned to Celestria. "Stay close and hold on to something solid." Celestria's violet eyes widened as the deck beneath her feet lilted like a rocking ship. She floated upward, her ceremonial robes billowing around her in silent waves. Marisol reached out, seizing Celestria's arm and guiding her toward the corridor's handrail. They crossed the threshold into a narrow hallway. At once the artificial gravity dipped to near zero. Celestria felt her legs lift from the deck. She gripped Marisol's sleeve, panic rising like icy water in her chest. "Breathe," Marisol said, her voice low and steady. She anchored herself to the rail with her boots, then reached back to loop Celestria's arm through her own. "Lean against me. We'll move together." Celestria swallowed hard and nodded. She pressed her body against Marisol's back, arms wrapped around the captain's waist. Their boots clicked into the magnetic rail. Together they began inchworming down the corridor, moving hand over hand. Around them, the lights flickered as sensors struggled to compensate. A panel overhead loosened, drifting free and clattering softly against the ceiling. Celestria's heart hammered, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had seen her people manage worse crises in palace emergencies. Marisol's voice came again over the comm. "Lieutenant Kim, report." "Gravity grids are misaligned in 2 sections, Captain," came the reply. "I'm sending you diagnostic overlays to your visor." Marisol tapped the side of her headset. A translucent display appeared before Celestria's eyes, lines of data tracing the corridor's walls and ceiling. She saw flickers where the grid rails glowed dim. "Celestria," Marisol said quietly, "we'll work together. I need you to monitor your senses. Tell me if you feel pressure changes or odd vibrations." The princess tilted her head, surprised. On Vahrin, rulers issued orders. They rarely asked for help. She hesitated a moment, then realized Marisol was offering trust, not weakness. She cleared her throat. "The left rail hums more faintly than the right," Celestria reported, voice calm. She tested the magnetic grip on her boots and found it secure. "Good," Marisol said. "Now do you feel anything near the overhead panel?" Celestria reached out, fingertips brushing the drifting panel. It swung in a slow arc above them. She felt a slight warmth where the panel's backplate rubbed against its housing. "There's heat and friction above us," she said. "Exactly," Marisol replied. "That tells me the grid misalignment is causing excess current flow. We need to rotate the panel slightly to restore contact." Celestria's fingers hovered over the panel's edge. "Shall I push it back?" Marisol glanced at her. "If you feel safe, I'll steady us." She widened her stance, arms ready. "On my count, 1, 2, 3. Together they gave A firm push. The panel clicked into place with a soft metallic snap. Instantly, the corridor lights brightened and the gravity grid rails glowed solid white once more. Celestria felt the gentle tug of restored gravity. Her legs settled onto the deck and she exhaled loudly. Marisol released her first and turned, offering a hand. The princess took it gratefully. Behind them, the jolt of warning lights faded. Over the comm, Lieutenant Kim reported, "Gravity field stable, Captain. All grids realigned. Sector 4 is normal." Marisol tapped her headset. "Good work, Lieutenant. All clear." Then she turned back to Celestria, a warm smile on her face. "See? When we work together, we solve problems faster." Celestria's heart still pounded, but the fear had melted into a fierce thrill. She looked at Marisol with new respect. "You trusted me," she said softly. "On my world, I would never have been asked to help with a crisis." Marisol shrugged. "Why not? You're here as an honored guest and as someone who sees the world in a different way. Different perspectives help me catch things I might miss." The princess thought back to her training. Strategy councils where advisors of equal rank argued protocols and policies. Precious few of those meetings ever invited input from outside the court. Here, on a human ship, a princess and a captain knelt together in a zero-gravity corridor, fixing a problem side by side. Celestria realized that Marisol's kindness had a purpose deeper than tea. It made people feel safe enough to speak up, to share ideas without fear. That feeling, empathy, was a power as real as any military strength. Marisol led her back toward the observation deck, where the stars shone through the great windows. The princess shook out her robe, smoothing the folds. A low ache buzzed in her arms from gripping the rail, but she felt alive. "Tell me," Marisol said as they walked, "what was the hardest lesson you learned as a princess?" Celestria considered. On Vahrin, she had been taught to hide her fears and doubts, to always appear unshakable. She had learned to speak in measured tones, to withhold her true thoughts unless necessary. That lesson had given her control. But it had also built walls around her heart. "I was taught that showing fear is weakness," Celestria said. "I believed that control meant never asking for help." Marisol nodded compassionately. "I was raised to lead from the front, to make decisions quickly. I thought asking for help showed indecision." The two women exchanged a look of mutual understanding. Both had lived in roles defined by protocol. Both had built invisible barriers between themselves and others. "Today," Marisol said softly, "I learned that strength comes from being honest about what you don't know." "And I learned," Celestria said, "that asking for trust can be more powerful than issuing commands." They reached the observation deck's semicircular lounge, where the deck's gravity hummed steadily. Crew members worked quietly at stations, casting curious glances at the princess, now walking with renewed confidence. Marisol gestured to a pair of chairs facing the stars. "Let's sit," she invited. They sank into the seats, and for a moment, the hum of the ship was the only sound. Celestria felt the warmth of gratitude bloom inside her. "Thank you," she said, meeting Marisol's eyes, "for trusting me." Marisol smiled and offered a cup of tea she had refilled. "Thank you," she replied, "for showing me the value of different strengths." Celestria took a sip of jasmine tea and watched distant suns flicker. In that quiet space, the boundaries between princess and captain, alien and human, melted away. They were two souls connected by shared experience, by empathy. Far above them, starships drifted in the void. Below their feet, the celestial dawn carried promises of new alliances. And within the hearts of its two bravest occupants, a lesson had taken root. That the greatest discoveries sometimes happen when we let down our guard and truly listen to one another. Princess Celestria stood before the grand view screen of the Celestial Dawn's conference chamber. Her violet eyes blazed with tension as Admiral Ral of the Crixan Federation appeared in the holoframe. His bronze skin and rigid uniform spoke of disciplined power. Behind him, the spires of Crixan warships glimmered ominously. "Princess Celestria," Admiral Rael began in a cold tone, "the Crixan fleet demands that your vessel withdraw from sovereign space by the next solar cycle. Failure to comply will force us to impose a blockade." Celestria's heart thundered. A blockade could starve worlds. It could spark war. She glanced at Captain Marisol Vega, who stood quietly at her side. Marisol's calm gaze steadied Celestria's nerves. "Admiral," Celestria said, her voice firm yet polite, "we mean no harm in sovereign space. We came to share knowledge and friendship." Ryal's lips curled in a sneer. "Words are wind, Princess. Crixen's strength lies in action. Withdraw, or face the consequences." With that, the hollow flickered and went dark. For a tense moment, silence blanketed the chamber. Crew members held their breath. Then Captain Marisol broke the quiet. "We have one chance to avoid bloodshed," she said. "Celestria, will you join me for a shared meal? A simple table, no protocols, just earth dishes and Varian pastries. We'll invite Admiral Ryal's envoy." Celestria blinked. On Varin, sharing a meal was a ritual of alliance, but it was also formal and distant. Yet Marisol's suggestion held hope. She nodded. "I will." Within the hour, the chamber's grand table had been cleared of data pads and strategy maps. Instead, it held handcrafted bowls of steaming vegetable stew, plates of flatbread, and a selection of crystalline fruit tarts from Varin. Soft lantern, light shimmered off the polished surface. Celestria stood at one end of the table beside Marisol. At the other end, 2 Crixan officers entered, Commander Threx and Lieutenant Darrow. They bowed stiffly but accepted seats. Their hands hovered above their weapons' hilts. Marisol raised a steaming bowl. "Please, try some earth stew. It's simple but warm." She ladled a scoop into a small dish and offered it to Commander Threx. The Crixan officer studied the stew suspiciously. Steam rose in gentle clouds. Threx dipped his spoon and tasted. He paused, then he swallowed. His stern expression softened for a heartbeat. "It is flavorful," he admitted. "Not like our rations." Marisol smiled and motioned to the Varian tarts. "And these, crystal fruit tarts, from Princess Celestria's homeland." Celestria placed a tart on each plate. "On Varin, we bake these for peace gatherings. They symbolize unity, sweet crystals bound together." Lieutenant Darrow regarded the tart. He picked it up and bit gently. His eyes widened as sugar crystals cracked between his teeth. "This is unlike anything I have tasted," Darrow said, voice soft. Marisol poured a small glass of water for each guest. "On Earth, we drink water to cleanse the palate between tastes," she explained. "Please, enjoy." As they ate, the officers lowered their guard. The harsh lines of their uniforms seemed less severe. Celestria dared to speak. "Admiral Ryal fears we might share technology that shifts the balance of power," she said calmly. "But technology is only as good as the intent behind it." Commander Threx set down his spoon. "Intent? Crixans value strength. Kindness is weakness." Marisol shook her head. "Kindness is respect. When we understand each other's needs, we can build lasting peace." Threx frowned. "Peace built on bread and pastries is fragile." Celestria leaned forward. "On Varin, we once faced famine. 2 of our rival clans sat together to share crystal fruit and ideas. They built irrigation systems side by side. Their friendship fed our people for generations." Threx narrowed his eyes but did not speak. He stared at the crystal fruit tart in his hand. Marisol rose and crossed to a small display of holographic star maps. "Show me your concerns, Admiral," she said. "Let us find common ground." She activated a star system projection. "If we adjust our flight path slightly, we can avoid your patrol zones entirely. We need only days to reroute." Celestria watched the map glow between them. The Crixan officers leaned in. The lines of potential routes flickered red and green. "Days?" Darrow asked. "That delays your mission." "Yes," Marisol replied, "but it protects your borders and shows respect for your sovereignty." Threx tapped the map. "If we allow this, Admiral Ryal will expect concessions." Celestria met Threx's gaze. "Concessions of spirit, not of strength. Let us be neighbors, not enemies." Another long silence fell. Celestria felt the weight of history in the officer's stares, but she also sensed curiosity, an opening. Lieutenant Darrow stood and bowed. "I will report this to Admiral Raal. You have given me much to consider." Commander Threx placed his tart on the table. "And you, Princess, have shown me that sweetness can temper the hardest steel." He bowed. "We will allow your new route, but if we see deception—" He let the threat hang in the air before turning and exiting. Darrow followed, pausing at the door to give Celestria a final nod. Then the chamber was still, save for the soft hum of life support. Marisol turned to Celestria and offered her a reassuring smile. The princess felt relief bloom like a flower. She looked down at the half-eaten tart and felt pride. "You led with compassion," Marisol said quietly. "You showed them your world is more than crystal towers." Celestria traced a finger over the tart's sparkling surface. "And you showed me that even hardened hearts can open with warmth." Marisol held out her hand. Celestria took it and they shared a gentle squeeze. In that moment, two worlds stood on the edge of peace rather than war. Far beyond the chamber, the celestial dawn's engines pulsed with steady rhythm. Sovereign, space remained open for travelers, and in the hearts of an alien princess and a human captain, a new alliance took root, one built on soup bowls, crystal tarts, and the simple power of kindness. Princess Celestria stood on the bridge of the celestial dawn, gazing out into the endless tapestry of stars. Each point of light felt like a promise of new worlds, and a reminder that her journey among the humans was drawing to a close. Behind, her captain Marisol Vega reviewed the final mission logs, her fingers dancing over the console with practiced ease. The soft hum of the ship's engines filled the room. Crew members moved quietly at their stations, giving the princess respectful bows as she passed. Celestria's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and sadness. In just a few hours she would return to the Varian Empire, bringing with her stories of kindness, cooperation, and shared dreams. Marisol approached, carrying a small wooden box carved with Earth's ancient symbols. She offered it to Celestria with a gentle smile. "For you, Princess," she said, "a gift to remember our time together." Celestria accepted the box, her violet eyes bright. "Thank you, Captain." She ran a fingertip over the carved patterns, a circle within a spiral symbolizing unity and growth. "What is it?" Marisol's smile deepened. "Open it." Inside lay two objects, a delicate silver pendant shaped like a star, and a tiny packet of moon willow seeds, the very tree Celestria had helped water in the Zero-G garden. "The pendant is made from Earth's starlight silver," Marisol explained. "It will glow faintly when you think of our friendship, and the seeds are for your palace garden, so a part of our ship's garden can grow back home." Tears gathered in Celestria's eyes. On Vahrin, gifts between rulers were rare and weighed with protocol. This gift felt different, warm, personal, and full of hope. "I will treasure them," she whispered. Marisol nodded, her own voice soft. "And I will plant a grove of crystal vines back on Earth, so we both have a living reminder." A hush fell over the bridge as the ship's navigator announced their course. "Princess Celestria, we are on final approach to slipspace coordinates. In 30 minutes, your shuttle will arrive." Celestria steadied herself against the rail. She looked at Marisol and bowed her head. "You have shown me a new way to lead with empathy and trust. I will take these lessons to my people." Marisol placed a hand on Celestria's shoulder. "And you have taught me that even the hardest hearts can soften. I will carry your courage with me on every voyage." The princess straightened and stepped toward the viewport. Beyond the reinforced glass, a sea of colors shimmered, the nebulous edge of sovereign space blending into the Varian star corridor. She inhaled deeply, tasting the metallic scent of the bridge air. In that moment, she remembered the first cup of jasmine tea, the floating flowers, the crisis in the corridor, and the shared meal that had changed everything. Each memory was a brushstroke in a portrait of friendship painted across the galaxy. A soft chime sounded, The communications officer spoke. "Princess, your shuttle has docked. They await your departure." Celestria turned to Marisol, her eyes bright. "Shall we?" They walked side by side through the ship's corridors, passing the zero-G garden one last time. The moon willow sapling glowed faintly in its chamber, its silver leaves pulsing with starlight captured from distant suns. Celestria reached out and touched one leaf. A surge of warmth traveled from her fingertip to her heart. Marisol watched her, emotion flickering in her eyes. "It's growing strong," she said quietly. "Just like our bond." Celestria nodded, "And just like hope." At the shuttle bay, a sleek vessel with ivory plating glistened under the artificial lights. Varan guards in crystalline armor stood at attention, waiting to escort the princess home. Celestria paused at the airlock, turning to face Marisol. "I wish I could stay," she said, her voice thick with feeling. Marisol smiled through her own misted eyes. "And I wish you could come with me on every mission, but this is not goodbye forever." Celestria stepped forward and embraced Marisol. The captain held her gently, careful of the princess's flowing robes. For a long moment they stood locked together, human and alien, two leaders bound by trust. When they broke apart, Marisol pressed the wooden box into Celestria's hands once more. "May it guide you through any darkness," she whispered. Celestria bowed deeply. "And may our friendship light the way for both our peoples." The airlock doors slid open with a soft hiss. Celestria turned and walked down the ramp into her shuttle. She glanced back once more at Marisol, her figure framed by the open doorway. The captain lifted her hand in salute. Celestria raised her own hand in return. Then the shuttle's engines glowed with bluish fire and it lifted off, carrying the princess toward her home. Through the viewport, Marisol watched until the ship block cleared the bay. She stood for a moment in silence, clutching the empty box, feeling its echo of warmth. Behind her, the crew relaxed, smiles spreading across their faces. The galaxy felt a little smaller, a little friendlier. The celestial dawn would continue its journey, but it carried with it a new chapter in galactic history, one written by compassion rather than conflict. On the bridge, Marisol turned to her crew. "Set course for Andera Station," she said, her voice steady, "and let us prepare for new friends to come." As the ship's engines roared to life, the stars outside the viewport stretched into lines of light, moving forward, onward, together. And in every heart aboard the celestial dawn, the memory of a princess's kindness and a captain's trust glowed brighter than starlight, promising new beginnings beyond the horizon.